Okay, so bolts are out. As far as I can see, I don't have any more trans bolts. I could have swore it was 7, but it seems to be only 6. 3 on each side, and then of course your 2 in your starter. So I guess you could say 8. But engine mounts are off, and she's ready to come out. So I'm gonna set you guys up somewhere, and you guys can watch. So.
Also very helpful to label all your stuff.
Yes, especially like whenever you're either by yourself or you don't have a lot of help. It helps, especially me, because I have ADHD. I forget shit all the time. So
Both of us.
Yeah, it just helps a lot to just write it down. That way you know where it's at, you know what it goes to, and you know all that. So let's get this motor out of here and start that. Alright guys, so we've got everything drained, heads off, intake off. I wanted to get it kind of torn apart before starting, because disassembly is pretty straightforward. It's the assembly part that some people either don't know how to do it, or they just want to know for sure how to do it. And so that's what we will be doing, is I'll be showing you guys how to put it back together, and I'm also going to show you guys taking out pistons and the crank for anybody who's not done it before. So if I can get this last oil pan bolt out of here, there it is, then we'll get started. So since we are here, this oil pan, obviously not stock. The stock one is actually over there next to the original 4.3 that was in here. So this is a hamburger, I'm not even kidding, Hamburger's oil pan. Hamburger's oil pans. I like the oil pan. The only complaint that I have with this oil pan specifically is not all of the holes line up perfectly, and I get it, nothing you buy is really going to be perfect. It's just kind of a pain. And what also I learned is using the blue thick rubber Felpro gasket with this, I could not get it to work whenever I first put this together. So I had to go get, I think it's not cork, is it? It might be a cork gasket, I don't remember. But anyway, I had to use that instead of the blue rubber one, because I just couldn't get it to go on correctly and get all my bolts started. So that's just one of the downsides to the oil pan. But I do love the oil pan. It's a 7 quart capacity, and you've got the sump here where you're not going to lose oil if you're like rock crawling or having fun and getting kind of angled with everything. So that being said, AJ, let's move all my bolts to the bed, and then I'll take this oil pan off and pick up there. Okay, so let's take this oil pan off and check things out. I don't expect to see anything, terrible. And of course, this oil pan thing. Hooker.
There it is.
Okay. Yummy. Okay. So as you can see, this oil pan. Oh, Jesus.
Don't dent the oil pan.
Ignore this stuff is from the break-in that we had, so obviously there's going to be some crap in it. Because I did put a cam in this motor, so it's going to have some metallic stuff, but we're going to get all that out of there. So this oil pan, not terrible. This is actually the gasket that came with it. So you've got your front, your rear, and then this. I don't even know what to call it. It's almost like a
Felt rubber.
It's like a felt. I don't know. I don't like these gaskets per se, but it's the only one that would freaking work. But the gaskets that I have has all new ones, so we're not going to be using it. Just going to yank this off. We're going to have to wire wheel it to get it clean, but you always have to, so. Okay, and then of course before we put it all back together, we're going to clean this one out and get all the metal out of it. And some of you might say, you know, oh, there's metal in your oil pan. Oh, you've done something. No, it's what happens when you put a new cam in.
Or anything new.
If you know you change your oil and you put a cam in a motor or something, and you see metal flake, don't freak out. That's just it's gonna happen. So, oh yeah. So this oil pan also comes with a new pickup tube. It goes a little deeper and it goes all the way to the bottom of that oil pan. So even if you had 2 quarts of oil, you're still going to get more. Because, I mean, this thing touches the bottom. That is a 7-quart capacity oil pan. And I bought it in the engine swap kit. I don't recommend buying the kit if you're doing this, what I've done. Because solid axles, you do not need this oil pan. You only need that oil pan to clear the stock front differential. That's what that oil pan's for. I don't even have to have it. I could literally go put the stock one back on and call it a day. But I'm not going to because I like the capacity, extra oil. You know, oil stays a little cooler because I have more oil. But this thing's also going to get a new oil pump. But I guess let's start, get these pistons out of here. And yeah, let's just start there first. Let's just see how this goes.
Yeah. As you can see, it actually looks pretty decent in here. It doesn't look like anything is wrong up in here.
No. It'll just be a little colored from
Oil,
oil, you know,
fire,
else.
oil and fire.
Oil and fire. So I've maybe put, let's say 5,000 miles on this motor. And I know you're saying, why are you taking it out already? You've only put 5,000 miles on it. Because it needs a rear main, because that thing leaks like a sieve. It's bad. So it needed a rear main, and like I said earlier in the video, or last video, excuse me, you have to take the crank out to replace the rear main in a 2-piece block. Thank you, Chevy. But yeah, so I just decided we might as well, since I'm already going to be here, it's going to get bearings, it's going to get like flat tops, you know, it's just going to get stuff because it was cheap. Like I said, everything I bought, like all the engine components, $300. That includes the pistons, the bearings, the engine gasket kit, the rings, all that was $300, like $295 on Summit Racing, and the radiator was $200.69. And I will throw those. I'll throw pictures of exactly what I bought. That way, if you guys need it, want it, or know where to get it, then you guys can get the same exact thing. So anyway, back to picking apart this.
Once you take these nuts off, are these pistons going to fall out the front of the block?
No,
They'll just
ain't gonna
stay?
fall out. The only way your piston will fall out is if
Your rings aren't.
if your rings are non-existent. If you have non-existent rings, then yeah, you're probably gonna fall out. That's how you know if something's really bad, is if your piston just falls out. And that's how you know they're tight. I've heard impact.
You ever heard of NASCAR pit crew?
I think you're about to.
That's what that is.
I need a nice.
It would help if you had the right size.
Yeah. Also, yes, you can take stuff out with an impact. Do not put it in with an impact.
Unless the bolts are like super rusty and seized and might break, I wouldn't take them out with an
I
impact.
would never, ever do that. But yeah, I mean, never put things in powder with an impact. But taking them out, it's not going to hurt anything. It just makes it faster. That's all it's doing.
And more powerful. Look at that.
But when you take these apart, I guess this is a good place to start with this is when you take these out, always, I know it might sound stupid, and you might not even really have to, but me personally, I'm going to do one at a time. And, oh, okay, no, those are,
Inside of the crank is fine.
that's fine.
All right.
Okay, so yeah, these, obviously the dirt is from my hands, but yeah, those are really good, actually.
The back of it, not so much.
The back of it, I don't know why it looks like that, but as I was saying,
The inside looks great, though. Look at that crank. Nice and shiny. Looks great.
so taking pistons out and putting them in. Do not use a metal hammer. I've seen people do it as a joke, and they either ruin the threads on their pistons, or they put a dent in a piston when putting it in. Don't do that. You just want to give it some taps and keep the threads away from
The crank.
the crank.
You don't want to scar your crank.
Yeah, no, that's not good. Just take your time. This is not a freaking speed race. Just some love taps. That's all you want to give it. With these,
Piston tops are being.
all the whole piston's just getting replaced anyway, but
Yeah.
oh, okay, I was blind. That looks amazing. These bearings look actually freaking amazing. This motor, as far as I know, only has like 80,000 on it.
Surprised.
Surprisingly.
What year is this block?
79. I'm just gonna say roughly 80,000 miles on this motor, and it looks it. I mean, the rings don't look terrible. They actually look fantastic. The pistons look fantastic, other than obviously just
Discoloration.
discoloration from it burning oil or whatever the hell it was burning.
Well, it looks good.
And that's why the bearings look as good as they do, is because
And from here, it looks like the cylinder walls look great.
yeah, we'll turn it back over before we like after I get the crank out, we'll turn it back over and look at it all up close and get a so not that it matters to me.
But that was back driver corner.
Yeah. So that's going to be my back. This will be the back, this will be the front, and that's the way I'm going to set them, because when I put my new pistons in, the same rods are going to go in the same place.
Yeah. because he's reusing the rods. If you watched the last video, he's got new pistons, but he's using the stock rods.
So also, what I was saying with your caps need to stay the same direction. You don't need to turn them. That's a no-no. And I always put the same nuts in the same spot. So just kind of put it back on there and just kind of thread the nuts on where you want to, especially if you're reusing. Now, if you've got like new rods and everything, new caps, you don't have to worry about that because obviously
they're not wore in they're not wore in a certain way.
You can put them in whatever the hell piston cylinder you want to, but
these are wore in, ran like this.
And because I'm reusing them,
That piston's black.
yeah, this is the one that, yeah. Yeah, so this one, this one actually did have some issues.
Yeah.
There's some scoring on the sides right here of the piston. So yeah, this one had some issues.
On top of the piston running rich as
Well, it's either rich, which probably,
or
or
blow-by.
just burning oil or blow-by. And this motor did have some blow-by, so I would assume that's what what was wrong with this one. But this one goes right here.
cylinder wall doesn't look terrible from up here. But we'll check that out later when we flip the motor back over.
And like I said, make sure you get everything the way it was supposed to be in here.
Yeah.
And you can actually tell there should be numbers. So you'll have a number stamped in your cap, and you'll have a number stamped at the very end. You might not be able to see it very well because this block is old, and the 2 is going to go with the 2. If it just in case like you get mixed up on which way you had it or whatever, or which way it came out.
It should line up with numbers.
Yes, it'll line up with numbers.
Like this one has an 8 on it, but there's not anything here on this other side. Like, as you can see this number right here, but there's not one on this bottom side. But
yeah, sometimes it might be over here.
Okay, that's 2.
That's 2 out. So basically, I've showed you how to do 2. It's the same for all 8. You're just gonna keep going through doing the same thing. Just line it up. I'll pick back up with y'all when we go to pull the crank pulley and the oil pump. So we'll pick back up with you there. We've got the pistons out. Obviously I showed you how to take out 2 of them. Sometimes one will be more of a pain in the butt. But as you take them out, you get a little bit faster at it. But anyway, everything out. And when you have nothing in here, like when you have no pistons, this should be able to spin relatively, like you give it a spin and it should spin smooth. That's how you know. That's how you know it was put together good. Basically, is if you can give her a little twist and it just keeps spinning for just a second, that means it's good. But since I have to take this crank out, I am replacing them anyways, because I am not one to reuse bearings, or crank bearings or rod bearings. Like, I'll reuse. I gotta get this off. And in all reality, I probably should have taken this off before we did this, but I mean, it's not going to be much of a difference. And then the next thing we'll do is take the oil pump out, and then we'll take the crank out. So I need to find the puller. I know we have one in here somewhere. Yeah, here you go. Wheel puller set. And we'll get this thing out of here. So let me sit y'all right here. See if it'll freaking focus on something more than the hammer. That's better. Not perfect, but better. I am doing this on a phone, so, you know. Anyway. Let's see here. These things are pretty simple to do, so it's simple, but it's also like a pain in the butt.
Especially if you don't have the right tools.
Yeah. Like, if you do not have one of these, I do not recommend doing anything else, because there's some pretty sketchy ways people take these off, and you can royally bone your balancer. Now, if you're and your crank actually, because if you chip something off your crank, it is no longer balanced, and it is going to ruin everything in your motor. So I don't recommend using anything other than a balancer puller.
Just
do not.
That probably had one.
Yeah, and also don't be using a freaking impact to take that off.
Hey, you do this with a socket. With a wrench.
You don't do it the slow way.
This is the only thing you don't take off with an impact.
Okay.
Everything else you can take off with an impact.
Yeah, everything else you can pretty much take off with an impact, but I don't recommend doing anything else with an impact. But why is everything in that?
Disassembly with an impact is fine. Reassembly, don't do it.
Yeah, don't. Just not worth it.
And technically, you're supposed to torque everything to spec.
Yeah, when you put it together, there's torque specs for every nut
And bolt on that motor.
Yeah. So I don't recommend doing anything other than that.
And Papa has a torque wrench somewhere.
Yeah.
We will be doing that when we put this thing back together. Sometimes, some bolts it doesn't really, and some it really does. It just depends on what bolt it is. Everything has a torque spec, and some of them matter, and some of them really don't. The water pump bolts have torque specs, but
but they're
you just tighten them.
They're like 15 foot-pounds or something. Just freaking tighten them. Don't over tighten them. Just tighten them.
One good ugga-dugga.
No ugga-duggas. Just tight. That's all it needs to be.
What are you looking for?
Right there. I do need your assistance.
My assistance?
Yes.
Interrupting my dinner snack.
Dinner lunch snack time. Alright, what are you aiming for?
Right here. Hold that. Yeah. Now, if you do it the way I'm doing it with everything out of your motor, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but you can leave your flex plate and just put a crowbar, stick it in one of the notches, and it should be equivalent, if AJ can hold it there.
Well, if you spin the motor backwards, I can't. Do it with people,
Yeah.
not by yourself.
This is not really a one-man operation.
Can you do it with one person?
Yeah.
Probably.
You probably could. I do not recommend it.
Yeah.
It's just a lot easier with more than yourself, and probably a lot more fun. I've actually had a good time doing this because I've had assistance, so I would have probably thrown 3 or 4 wrenches by now if it was me by myself. And I probably would have just now got my motor out, so you know, it's nice having help. We've got the front timing cover. Thank you, AJ. Got the timing cover off. Got the timing gear for the cam out. We're gonna start off with the oil pump first, and then we will proceed to take the crank out. And obviously, some people, you know, you'll see I still have the flex plate. You can take the flex plate off before you put it on the stand, or you can do it after. The way I did it, because I had the harmonic balancer still on, I left it just so we could have something to grip. That way the crank would not spin, so I could take that out, as you've seen. But that'll come out with the crank, and then I'll just take it off the crank and set the crank, you know, not on the ground. I see people do that, and I'm like, why? But, so we'll start on that. AJ is finishing his food. I'm probably going to take a 5, let him finish. I'm going to grab me a drink, and we will pick up taking the oil pump out. So, see you in a few. I'm just putting bolts back, you know, where they go, just so you don't lose any of them, and you know where they are. The last time I did this, I was trying to be in a hurry and get crap done, and I was losing bolts left and right and didn't know where anything was. So learn from your mistakes and put the bolts back where they go. Take the time.
Either put them back or label them.
Yeah, put them in a Ziploc and label them. There's several different things you can do, but the easiest thing to do is just to kind of half thread them in where they were. That way you don't lose them. Same thing, you know, I put the water pump bolts back in where they were. These are the mounts for my alternator and
Other
power
front.
steering and, you know, other front accessory stuff. So just put them back where they go. That way you don't lose them. But anyway, we're about to get started on oil pump. That is actually going to get replaced. Just because I feel as though if I don't do it, that one will give out on me, and I'll be back doing this again. But at the same time, I can actually change an oil pump with the engine in the Blazer because of how much room I have. I can actually take this oil pan out fully and get underneath, and I could probably do it with the motor in, but I'm here, I might as well do it. So we're gonna start with it and make sure I get the right size on this thing. And then the extension would be good. Ratchet. I don't know what the freaking foot-pounds is on this thing, but holy crap. Stay. There we go. And of course my ratchet likes to do stupid things.
His ratchet's broken.
Yeah, I've dropped it one too many times. Or thrown it. Stuff happens. But anyway, I believe it's just the one bolt for the oil pump.
One bolt.
Uno bolt. It is just Uno bolt. 1 5/8 bolt. And it comes right out. But I will have to take my pickup tube out of this and put it in a new one. Easiest way to do that, the way I did this one, is throw it in the freezer, like the pickup tube, for like an hour. If you can, throw it in overnight, and it shrinks, and it makes it a lot easier to get into the holes on this thing, because it's a very tight fit, and it should be, because that's the only thing that really holds it where it is just the friction itself. So yeah, just throw it in the freezer for like overnight if you can. If not, throw it in for a couple hours, and it'll shrink it enough where it makes it a lot easier to go in. So let's start on crank
Bolts.
and get this thing out of here. And if you didn't, these are all 5/8 bolts that hold the crank in. If you have a 4 bolt, it should be the same thing. This is a 2 bolt, sadly. And from what I've learned, 2 bolt mains can hold about 500. It's about the same as a Ford 302. You can hold about 500 before you start breaking things. And 4 bolt, you can do 750. That might be the max, so I probably wouldn't go anywhere near that. My goal with this is 3 to 350. And I think that's what I'll have with the components I'm putting in it. I don't really want to go any more than that. But 200 trying to turn 35-inch tires, it's a little gutless. I'll say that much. Well, why are you doing all this? Basically because my rear main leaks like a quart of oil a week. So that's why I'm doing this. And you know how everything goes is I basically said, well, I'm taking it out anyway, might as well put a cam in it, might as well put some pistons in it. You know, it just turns into this spiraling downhill money pit. The thing I would recommend is, instead of using the TBI off of the 4.3, even though you can, I would try to find one that's off of like a 90s model. I believe it's a K1500, but like a 90s K1500 or whatever. I don't yell at me in the comments if I got that wrong, but just something that had TBI from Chevy, and just put the TBI part on, and it should run a lot better than this one did. But anyway, where'd my hammer go? Right there. Same thing for taking these things out. You'll have to give these a little bit more than a love tap sometimes to get these things out. Main bearings look good. Feels good. I don't feel anything wrong. And here, my friends, is my leaky problem. If it'll come out. Come on, you hooker. That is my leaky problem. 2-piece rear main that you have to take the cap out for. And to do the other side, you have to take the freaking crank out. So, here we are. And most obviously, your 2 end caps, so your back cap, and your front cap. Well, maybe not this front cap. On a 302, they only go on one way. So, and the back cap on this one obviously only goes on one way. There's no way you can get it wrong. But then again, I've seen people get things wrong that you can't get wrong. So, with that being said, we're gonna keep taking these caps off, main caps, checking bearings. That one's a little, not terrible, just normal wear. But I would definitely keep these in line.
It looks pretty good.
Yeah, it doesn't look bad at all. Yeah, no, it doesn't look bad at all. That's just normal. Your caps need to go on
The same way
the same one they came off of. They do not need to, you don't need to be switching caps around, and they also need to go in the same direction. And a lot of, yeah, right here. So if you don't know, you can look at these. This might you not be able to see it, but there is an arrow. The arrow will point to the front of the engine. I don't know if these have a number stamped on them anywhere. It doesn't seem like it. So whenever you take them off, obviously the arrow is going to point toward the front of the engine, but I always just put them
in line.
in order. That way you can't get it wrong.
One more.
Take the front one off.
Front cap.
Front one looks a little bit more worn.
But it doesn't have oil coming to it like the others do.
Yeah. So take this thing out. Maybe if I get the suction.
Here, let me.
Before I take this out, actually, I want a place to set it.
Yeah, make sure you have a place to
Let's
set
get
it.
some cardboard, something to set it on. Don't get too far ahead of myself here. We might go ahead and use.
Crank's about to come out of this motor over here. You might take the radiator out of your radiator box. Radiator's gonna be out of it anyways. Yeah, everything looks really good. This one's gonna have more wear to it. It's on the outside of the motor, doesn't get as much oil. But the rest of them look great.
Or will it ever do that? This will come right up.
And really the flex plate helps you take it out.
Yeah, it really does.
Because it gives you something to hold.
Gives you something to grip on too. Now I will take the flex plate off
Yeah.
when we get there. But this cam this is a Summit 1102. It's a little bit more than stock lift. It's not really a chop, it's more of a gallop, like a horse gallop. And you couldn't really tell with the TBI in it, but whenever we get this car, you'll be able to hear it a lot more. There you have a
Disassembled block.
fully disassembled block, other than cam.
The cam is the only thing in it.
Cam's the only thing staying because I'm not changing it because it's brand new. So I am going to check my lopes and just make sure,
They looked
nothing-
okay.
There's none of them that look, worn or too terribly bad. And no, they all just look like they've just had a little bit. They're just kind of, really it's just getting broke in. Like that's basically what's happening here is it's just getting broke in. I'm gonna end it here. If you didn't know, that's AJ. I will put his stuff in the description. Thanks for watching, and I will see y'all in the next one where we take apart this crap and put it back together again and hope to God it runs. See you next time.